Research shows that ADHD has a greater toll on women than it does on men. But why? In this video, I will let you in on the top differences between men and women with ADHD, why it can be a lot more difficult to get diagnosed as a woman, and what you can do about it. So stay tuned, guys. Welcome back to ADHD Vision, where you can learn how to use ADHD to your advantage. So if you have ADHD, why don't you consider subscribing? Before we start, guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friends at Fidget Planets who sent me over some awesome fidgets to keep my ADHD brain stimulated. If you want to get yourself some, click the description link down below. They're actually of really high quality and they literally only cost a few bucks. Mainstream media tells us that having ADHD looks something like this. Hyperactive kids, usually boys, jumping around, not knowing what to do with themselves. And indeed, research has shown that males are 3 times more likely to get diagnosed with ADHD than women. But that doesn't necessarily mean that more men have ADHD, especially because it is estimated that 80% of people with ADHD still don't actually know that they have it.
That still only counts as one!
In fact, one study found evidence to suggest that the broad discrepancy in the ratio of males to females with diagnosed ADHD is due to, at least in part, the lack of recognition in women. You see, to be able to analyze the differences between men and women with ADHD, we have to first understand that even though women with ADHD face many of the same symptoms as us men, they also labor under the added burden of restrictive gender roles, fluctuating hormones, and a greater tendency towards self-doubt and self-harm. On top of that, let's not forget that ADHD is not a one-size-fits-all disorder. For one, it's a spectrum disorder, meaning that some people have it to a greater degree than others, and it actually comes in different forms, some of which are a lot more difficult to notice from the outside. In short, there are 3 so-called subtypes to ADHD: the hyperactive inattentive, and the inattentive subtype. If you want to find out what the exact differences to these 3 are, click the video link on the top right. To keep it brief, the most common of all of these subtypes is the hyperactive inattentive, or so-called combined type, involving both symptoms of external hyperactive behavior as well as inattention and distractibility. And this is why the main difference between men and women with ADHD is that men are a lot more likely to display hyperactive behavior, making it a lot easier for doctors to tell if they have ADHD or not.
Well, I'm a man. I can do that.
It's not very fair.
Women, on the other hand, have been shown to be diagnosed with inattentive ADHD a lot more, which is way more difficult to observe from the outside because it is a lot more internal. But Nick, what does that actually mean? Great question, Bob. So as a man with ADHD, you will, generally speaking, usually have hyperactive symptoms that are very visible from the outside, like being very fidgety, have trouble sitting still for longer periods of time, talking non-stop, being very impatient and or interrupting or butting into other people's conversations, which, by the way, is something that in today's society is not unusual for a man to be like.
This is what I'm here for.
All the while also experiencing internal inattentive symptoms like struggling to follow instructions, becoming easily confused, daydreaming, becoming easily distracted, and my personal favorite, having difficulty when trying to follow through on tasks or assignments. Now, let's imagine we leave out all the hyperactive symptoms I just mentioned in the beginning. That's the main form of ADHD that girls or women have, only it usually doesn't end there. As stated in the beginning, women with ADHD can have it a lot harder because of, for one, their restrictive gender roles. They often blame themselves for not fitting into the picture that society holds of a woman because many women feel that conforming to gender role expectations is the route to acceptance.
I'm just a poor Cinderella.
Even though we are seeing a slow change towards more accepted female roles, generally speaking, women have always been expected to be responsible caretakers, organizers, etc., which can be very difficult to live up to if you have ADHD as a woman because you can feel like you can't even do these things for yourself. Also, when women's premenstrual hormone levels drop, they can actually experience heightened ADHD symptoms, making it a lot more difficult to work with. Now, even though us men thankfully don't experience these drops in premenstrual hormone levels, that doesn't mean we don't have similar issues when having undiagnosed ADHD. For men, because we strongly define ourselves via our jobs, if we aren't in the right one that fits to our brain, we can feel quite ashamed about not being able to reach those expected goals that non-ADHDers don't seem to have problems with. On top of that, our ADHD-driven rejection sensitivity can get us to feel very ashamed of getting judged for not being able to live up to those expectations. So, as you can see, even though there are big differences between men and women in regards to their ADHD, we both share this inherent difficulty of feeling like we don't fit in, especially if we don't know we have ADHD and think there is something just completely wrong with us. If you're a man, or a woman for that matter, and you feel like you're in the wrong job right now, make sure to check out the video on the top right, where I let you in on the top 6 ADHD jobs and careers that can truly change your life for the better. What's important is that even though having ADHD can definitely feel like a curse, there are also some awesome sides to it, which are just waiting to be used to your advantage. And that's actually what this channel is all about. So if you haven't already, why don't you consider subscribing and ringing that notification bell to not miss out on any more helpful content. However, symptoms for women will not only include inattentiveness, but also low self-esteem. If you're a woman with ADHD, you might spend a lot of time and effort to try to look normal, hoping that nobody notices the real you. You might dislike going to parties and other social gatherings because they make you feel overwhelmed and shy, and overall, you might find it difficult to just internally take a breather and relax.
I am overwhelmed. Everything is changing and it's simply too much. I need to get away and think.
Now, because I actually have inattentive ADHD as a guy, I can relate to this a lot, and I can tell you from first-hand experience that it is nothing like what mainstream media tells us ADHD is. Basically for us, it's like our brain and thoughts internally mimic that jumping, hyperactive kid, and it's something that we can have difficulty turning off. On top of that, for me, it was never really noticed from the outside, which is why my family and friends couldn't believe it when I told them that I had just gotten diagnosed with ADHD. Of course, for me, it was one of the biggest reliefs of my life, as finally everything made sense. This is why I can tell you that undiagnosed ADHD for men, on the other hand, goes further than just ill job satisfaction. It is something that can control your whole life, from trouble getting organized, to reckless driving for stimulation, marital trouble, anger outbursts, etc. Undiagnosed men can also definitely be suffering in silence, which is why I would recommend everyone who thinks that there is even the slightest percentage of a chance to check out the short official ADHD test on the top right of this video. This can help you get a clearer picture of if you want to go and get officially diagnosed or not. Now, I have already heard of so many amazing stories of men and women who have finally figured out that they have ADHD, which is why I would be really interested to know about your journey. So be sure to let me know down in the comments how your life changed once you found out you had ADHD. I'm sure that your stories could help a lot of people who are watching this but aren't 100% sure that they have it.
Thank you.
Now, for everyone who wants to currently get diagnosed, even though waiting times can be long depending on where you live, it is definitely worth it, guys. If you do have to wait but are a bit impatient, which I would probably be too, seeing as we have the same brain, I would highly recommend to check out a few of my self-help videos so you can already get started. Now, lastly, guys, please don't forget that what's mentioned in this video will not apply to everyone. Just like there are men with inattentive ADHD such as myself out there, there are most definitely also lots of women with hyperactive or combined type ADHD. That being said, if you like what I'm wearing and you want to learn how to use ADHD to your advantage, be sure to cop yourself a shirt and a hoodie here, get your fidget spinners down below, and check out my other videos right here. I will see you again in a week. Till next time, guys.